Today to introduce Antje Lehmann. Antje has, as you can see, a number of certifications, PMP, lots of Agile certifications, which include Discipline Agile certifications. The one that is not on there that I am very happy to announce is Antje is a certified Discipline Agile instructor. She just recently received that designation. And my sort of tagline for you is energy and excitement. I had the pleasure of having Antje in some of the workshops that I delivered. And due to our time differences, a lot of times it was very, very late in the evening into the early morning. And your level of energy and participation was always just absolutely fantastic. So our topic that we're going to cover today is the role of Discipline Agile in helping organizations emerge after pandemic lockdowns. This is kind of a tie-in to a number of the questions that we've been receiving over the past weeks. And there are a number of things within the DA toolkit that we feel could really help organizations. So let me just stop sharing my screen so that we can have a full view of us. And Antje, if you'd like to start us off with some of your thoughts.
Okay, sure. First of all, thanks for the welcome, and welcome also to the audience from my side. I'm really happy you all joined for this talk today, which I think is about a really important topic, and which is probably just one we're really exploring right now together globally, which is already something very special. So we see teams facing challenges globally these days, and my role in that so far is that as an instructor, trainer, and coach also for teams, what I see is that teams just face certain challenges this time. Of course, Agile teams, project teams in general face a lot of challenges all the time, which is part of the fun of the job too, to get these solved. But there are some very specific challenges right now that many teams are facing that are really in connection with the current situation that is going on with the COVID-19 crisis that actually stops nowhere. So we see everyone in the world globally in this kind of together somehow. So we're all going through this crisis. It affects companies. Of course, each company, each team again is affected individually, but and with their own specific situations again, but they all face some common challenges that I see happening everywhere. For example, the suddenly virtual situation, right? Of course, there were remote teams before this crisis, but right now this is really something that that is so many more teams are right now going through, and how are we going to collaborate with each other in a meaningful way, in a productive, engaging, maybe interactive kind of way, if we're just all sitting in front of our computers, maybe in home office. Maybe right now, companies who are still struggling with lockdown situations around them or are trying to slowly get out of it, they still have to maintain certain hygiene regulations that are also in, I'm in Germany, so here they're also of course imposed by the government, and I think it's the same everywhere. Where teams just can't just work with each other, even if they can slowly come back to work or to the office like they did before, because first of all, maybe their whole project situation has changed anyway. If they have customers in their project, maybe that collaboration is affected, first of all. And then also some are have to comply with rules such as working in shifts. I heard this recently from a team that some team members can come in the morning, others will then switch places with them in the afternoon. And then again, how are you working with each other? How is team collaboration? Of course, we can't give simple answers to that because there are no simple answers. But what I think, what I really enjoy or look forward to now also talking about with you is how can what can be specific ideas to help these teams, to give them some inspiration in their work, and what can Discipline Agile even more specifically offer there, perhaps. So actually for me, I'm also now suddenly virtual. I was a virtual trainer also before doing some online training, but that was more every now and then. I also did an online class or ran an online class, but right now it's the norm. It's the new norm. And so even in training and also in coaching, same thing. And in project work that I also sometimes do, like training development projects. We have to figure out together as a team how are we going to collaborate. And what I personally, just to maybe mention this before everything else, what I enjoy about this at the same time, and not wanting to diminish any bad effects of this crisis, of course, and it's terrible what's happening, but what's really the one positive effect in this crisis for me is to see that it is possible to work with each other, maybe differently than before. Maybe you have to readjust our expectations and things like that. Absolutely. But it is possible to have a virtual collaboration with each other, remote, or just act somehow, react to the new, the new normal, if you will.
Yep.
So that would be my opinions, my first observations about this. So you also work a lot virtually with teams. I know that.
I do. Yeah, that's been the preferred mode for quite some time, well before the current crisis. And what you've described is very similar to some of the organizations I'm currently working at, where they are having some of their employees come back in. They are also doing different shifts because of the close proximity of how they had, people sitting. They have to have enough space around them, and because of that, they're kind of on rotating shifts, and it's also rotating when they would come in, not in a given day, but over a given week, right? So a lot of what I'm seeing in, again, with the organizations I'm working in, is that they're going to have a certain percentage of capacity for most of the team members that will still be remote for quite some time, and so what maybe early on was going to be, a somewhat temporary kind of situation for everyone, is now going to have such long lasting impacts.
Yeah.
um, Again, I think that's why this topic of how DA can provide a little bit of a difference in comparison to some other agile ways of working that organizations can be open to.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Right. So I think it's a lot about teamwork, actually. So these struggles are real, and they're a lot about team collaboration and what can you do there. And what I personally really like about Discipline Agile is also why I started to go on this journey, right? To first be a certified practitioner and use Discipline Agile or tools from the Discipline Agile toolkits in my work. And just also really learn about it more myself. And now until becoming an instructor recently is also that it's not just about, okay, which kind of meetings do we have to have when? That's an important question, but it's not everything. It doesn't stop there, right? It's just a start. To kind of set yourself up the processes that you need is one thing, but it's also a lot about team collaboration. How do we coordinate our activities? How do we work with each other, even across teams, and maybe with the customer, and on the focus on the people really involved. And this is what it boils down to again. So often in the projects, it's about the people. Yeah. And also in any other kind of product development endeavors, even ongoing ones, it's about the people. What I like personally about Discipline Agile is that it offers a lot of tools in the toolkit that help people interact and collaborate with each other. And I really find that interesting. And that's why I think there are things that we can find in the toolkit that can actually help right now with the crisis, dealing with the crisis. And in the end, what it is it's new challenges. And again, it's terrible. It's a terrible situation. But it's a challenge that people have to tackle and have to deal with. In the process, maybe also gaining new skills, new perspectives. A lot of people are telling me right now, this really gave a push for digitalization in our company now. A lot of us are so much more familiar with collaboration tools that work online, and how to organize your work together. Maybe even how to set up virtual folder systems, work with clouds and things like that. So to enable more real-time collaboration, and whichever the tool decisions are that teams make, or that organizations make also for their teams. But in the end, it also, what I'm probably trying to say is that it's a crisis, it's a challenge, and as bad as it is, it can also help us learn new skills right now,
Yes.
and that can prove valuable long into the future.
Yes.
So,
And that
yeah.
ties into a question that Rana asks. My company is moving quickly towards an agile way of working from the current one where IT and business partners are different. I already have my ACP, but for practical purpose, how can I prepare in the coming months as an active business IT relationship manager?
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand the question. So the question is really about how can I get better at maintaining relationships with the business, right? Is that the question,
Yes,
you
I
think?
think that's, yeah.
Okay, right. So yeah, and I think this is really about customer collaboration, or it's the same thing. It's whether it's someone within my own company that gives me business requirements, and maybe I'm part of a development team, maybe in the IT industry or serving the other departments. So an kind of internal stakeholder that I'm talking about on business side, or if it is even a business representative from a customer organization, so a different company that I'm working for, or that we as a team are working for. I think in both cases, and with cross-company projects even more so, it's just important to maintain really close relationships and to really train the skill, first of all, for me to really understand stakeholder needs. That for me is just a very crucial, essential part. Stakeholder identification, first of all, be aware who is my stakeholder, what do they need, and then to a degree cater to those needs, of course, if you want to work with them, but also making sure they understand what you need from them. And I think there are great ways to do this, what you can learn about stakeholder management tools that are out there, that are also, by the way, part of the ACP certification, but of course also the Discipline Agile toolkit has answers to that, like when you look at the process goal diagrams that Discipline Agile offers, for example. There are also some about stakeholder collaboration, and what can we do to get the stakeholders on board with us as a project team, so that they're not just the people out there handing over requirements to us and not caring so much what happens until they see a result. No, actually the idea is to actively engage them, work with them, get their frequent feedback. And there are many answers to this and many frameworks that address this, because it's such a crucial part of any team working in projects or working in product development in general, and agile teams. It's just very essential to be in close touch with your stakeholders. So there are probably several certifications and frameworks that can help you enhance your skills here. But absolutely, Discipline Agile is absolutely one of those. How can you improve stakeholder collaboration? Great question. Stakeholder relationships, business relationships. I think it's also really important to speak the same language, or try to speak the same language, or at least understand each other's language. What I had once after a seminar was that participant told me, he was more from the business side, and he told me, finally, I have a language, I have a terminology to talk to developers. And he later gave me that feedback that he even used it in a first meeting, and it went great, because he started understanding their side. It wasn't that he didn't really know anything about that before. It was just that the change of perspective, what might developers need from you, dear business stakeholder, as you are in this role, helped him improve the outcome of the project in that case. And I'm sure it works also the other way around. So trying to get closer to each other, those people doing the work, those people phrasing the requirements, or having the requirements in the first place, that they start understanding each other. What do we need? These different perspectives, what kind of different language do we talk sometimes, and how can we get closer together? How can we collaborate? There should be immediate results, no matter if it happens virtually or on site, if that can get improved.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd also mention here, specifically since it was a business IT relationship manager, again, not having maybe all the context of what that position at your organization is, Rana. But in addition to the team level life cycles that DA has, there is also the flex life cycle, which
Right.
really targets more of the portfolio space and looking at value streams. And that, I think, is also going to be an area that we're going to see more and more interest and focus in, because companies need to be looking at better alignment with the products that they're working on, the investments that they're making, because so many companies, sales are off, right? I mean, sales are down, or they haven't been able to produce products, so their products are on back order. And how they can make the best informed decisions, and how they can look at doing the investments in smaller batches of work that's going to be done by the teams and so forth. That flex life cycle really is something that enables that. And that was one of the other things that was somewhat new to DA, right? I mean, PMI bought Net Objective, which is bringing all that in together. But for
Mhm.
those areas also, from a business facing position, and looking at where stakeholders can get better value, that's another area. We also have another question from Paul, and Paul asks, what are some ways we can level the playing field when some team members are in the office and some aren't? Do you feel that those who are not in the office might be at a disadvantage?
Yeah, that's a great question. I could imagine that they feel that way. And I think it's the responsibility of everyone on the team to make sure that doesn't happen or have too much of an impact. So to include these people as much as you can. I actually worked in that situation once myself, long before the current crisis. We already had developers just in a different location. And we were trying, as product owner back then, I was trying to work with them to really make sure requirements are understood. We're all on the same page. Features work as expected. The tests are going okay, and things like that. And it was hard back then. Technology wasn't as advanced as it was now, and we all, for example, had no, and also there was no organizational need seen back then to help us there, and to give us better equipment so that we could all really talk to each other, engage with each other, for example, via webcam. So some of these people I've never seen personally until today. I don't know if some of them are here. Could be, never know. But we've never met. And although we're keeping in touch until today, and we also try to visit each other if ever possible, but that would be a private thing now. So first, the essence being that I worked with people in a team on a daily basis, and this was really, it was really needed that we work closely with each other when we could never really meet, never really see each other. What we had was chat boxes and a ticketing system.
Yeah.
And that was it. And some calls, of course, the option to call each other, telcos. So yeah, that was, I think nowadays, fortunately, we're more advanced with that. Like we're talking right now here,
Yeah.
already gives us the ability to see each other's body language, react to that. And that, it sounds like a small thing, but it can really, really help. If people just use webcams, for example, if people just use real-time chat tools, collaboration tools that are also on the rise right now for that reason, right? So that you can
Yes.
interact with each other much more quickly than you could in the past, not just sending emails, but back and forth.
Yeah.
So I think the more real-time you make it and the more personal you make it, the better for a team. And to include the people who are outside, because who are in different locations, because the problem for them is really they can't tap into the osmotic communication, as it's called, right? That happens in the team office, where people can just shout quickly some information to each other from one table to the next, and the other team members sitting somewhere else are actually out of the picture and don't ever hear that this was discussed. So really making sure, I think, is important that everyone is informed, that everyone's in the loop, that interaction happens in a kind of real-time collaboration manner as much as is possible. But if organizations help their employees, their teams to do that, especially also for Agile teams, I think it is an essential ingredient for Agile virtual teams, which we're basically talking about right now, right? If some people are distributed, that's the situation, then I think organizations have to support that in terms of technology, so that people can have this team feeling together. And it's possible. It is.
It is
So I've seen
possible.
it happen. Yeah.
And I think some of the other things that I've tried to, since I have done a lot of work virtually again, is it just a way of working for a long period of time. I'm seeing that organizations now that are in this situation, the teams are a lot less impacted or feel at a disadvantage because everybody has been at home for some period of time. Some of
Yeah.
the things that I encourage them to do is to also, with if they've got something like a team norms or where they're capturing some of their team rules, it's things like if there are more people coming into the office and they are going to continue to have the regular interaction, well, yes, they need to make sure their cameras are on, right? So they don't just have audio on. So, like you said, you can see that body language. You can have much more of a connection as some people are coming into the office, as well as people that are still staying, in their homes. So creating some of those types of rules, the behaviors that the teams want to have, so that people don't feel at a disadvantage, are also very important, just so that they can continue to perform as a team, and that doesn't degrade. But I don't think that it's at least what I'm seeing in my experience is that it's not as big of an impact as it was, because everybody's had a turn at being at home, and now having to learn to use Zoom or Teams or any of the other video platforms, plus a lot of the new collaboration tools people are getting used to. The canvases that are out there that you can create boards and have lots of interaction in, which was different. And hopefully that those utilizations are, like you'd mentioned earlier, are going to continue for a long lasting bit of time.
I'm sure they will. I agree. And one more thing I might add maybe is that you find if you look into the process goal diagrams, to just pick that up again, that Discipline Agile offers. So to find just possible solutions to certain problems and challenging that teams are facing, you'll also find recommendations, for example, for having team ambassadors or people who take care of cross location coordination and stuff like that. And I think that's actually a great advice. So again, also for virtual teams, have someone responsible to make sure this is really not just the idea behind everything, but this is really happening. This is really implemented like that. The rules that you just said, ground rules, I think great idea for a team, and then have someone who's really responsible for making sure that those are also lived by. And that could be the team coach. That could be anyone on the team who volunteers to just be the owner, right, of that task or of that challenge, to make sure everyone in the team feels included. I think if you have someone, maybe even with prior experience in that, if you're lucky,
I
you have
do. And
someone
what I
like
like
that.
to do is I like to have somebody like you're mentioning, but I like to make
Yeah,
that a rotating so that everybody on the team is
also great
responsible. So
idea.
yeah, everybody takes a turn, whether it's, each iteration, it kind of rotates to somebody else who's being mindful of it, so that we do get that shared or that collective ownership for all of that.
That's
And one
wonderful.
thing I will mention for those of you that are on the webinar today that might not have had the opportunity yet to explore the Discipline Agile Toolkit, what Ante is mentioning as far as these process goals is there's hundreds and hundreds of practices, and then within practices you have different types of techniques to maybe approach putting a practice into utilization. The process goals are a nicely organized way that teams can take a look at some of the decision points that they need to make or some of the challenges that they're having, and then look at the sort of the pros and cons or some of the trade-offs that some of the options that are presented. So it's a nice collection of things. So it's a very succinct way for teams to be able to have a wealth of information sort of at their fingertips. And again, that's another thing that DA provides as a toolkit. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood the process goals,
Yeah,
because they're such an important part of the value that you get out of using DA.
yeah, I agree. And so I think that coaches, agile coaches who are familiar with how to use these tools, because such a rich toolkit to also how to use these, it's really also for them, it's a great chance to actually help teams uh, tackle their specific challenges and struggles right now. Definitely.
Yeah.
With the help of the DA toolkit. Absolutely agree. So I've already started doing that.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
one of the things also, as far as the process goals, that yes, you can find them on the not only in the the DA book, right, the Choose Your Way of Working book, in the open source website. But if you do have a DA membership in your a CDA or higher, you also have access to the DA tool. So within that tool, you can go through and really take a look at how you can configure those from a team perspective, which is also a way to have it online and make it very easy for everybody to use and to see.
Yeah.
We've got probably time for just one more question that I want to get in, which is, and I'll ask you maybe for I'll give you a moment to kind of think about this, your response. So Joan asked, for a company new to making DA work for them, it takes time probably to ramp up. What could a company or team do to get going? So what is just like your takeaway for everybody that's on the webinar, as far as like, what's the one or two or the top three things that you think they would get the most impact from?
Um, okay, that's also a bit of a personal opinion, of course. What I've had most, yeah, what resonated with others a lot, and what I personally also like a lot, is well, first of all, that DA helps you first of all choose your way of working for a team, for themselves, that they're able to choose their way of working, that they can choose their life cycle that fits their environment, their working environment, their project environment, if you will, that they can look at, okay, no matter if they're using still the word project or not, that's a different discussion, doesn't really matter for me so much, because I really like that there's just the option to choose, that you can use, can use a situational approach. You can decide for the best approach for your endeavor, but you're not left alone with that. So often you hear, well, look into, for example, Scrum as an example of an agile process framework. Look into it and see if it works for you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. That's what some people say, but that's where it stops. And then teams are left alone, like, okay, what else is there? What else can I look at? And that would be one of the really, for me, helpful resources, is to help teams make that decision. I realize that not every team is always allowed to make these decisions for themselves. So DA, the mindset behind DA is also absolutely that teams should be allowed to do that. And even if not, maybe you get some guidelines and orientations. I mean, you always have to work with what you've got. If it's just not possible for you right now, then maybe you can at least try to understand what are some of the problems maybe coming from the fact that we could adapt our way of working. And how could DA give us ideas to do that? And then maybe we can work from there. So that would be one of the things. Yeah. Then what I also like is really the Disciplined Agile Manifesto, which is just so it's if you read through it, it has some more details, some additional ideas that help enhance the value of the original Agile Manifesto. And in that, it just gets so clear that Disciplined Agile really also promotes the how important choice is, how important context is, and how important it is for teams to be empowered, to be awesome. So all these principles also, they are also great as a starting point. Of course, you'll have to move from there, and every team is different and every situation is different. But I'm really convinced that DA can help with that, which is why I'm also on this path to learn more about it every day.
Yes, and this question is somewhat similar to one that we had at our Ask Me Anything DA. We had somebody ask that they had been making progress at their organization with some early adopters of DA, and there's interest to move forward maybe on a little bit more coverage or bigger scale. So I will say that based off of that, we did write a blog on it, and it's tied into an adoption strategy that has a number of options in it that we use with organizations. It's out on the Process Mentors website. It's based mostly off of the strategy that is in the executive guide to DA book that Mark Lyons and Scott Ambler wrote. But we have added some additional options that has different sequencing or focus around what upfront training you're going to do versus just-in-time training, and then how you're going to kind of measure that and the types of support you might need. So Joan, for any follow-up, I would encourage you to take a look at that and then just let us know if you have any follow-on questions. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen for just a moment so that we can show what we've got coming up for next week, as we are just a tiny bit over our time period. So yes, next week we've got Jeev Chu and Nikita Bhatt that are going to talk about forming product teams. So how to go about that, how to look at, what are now, these long-standing, longer life types of teams. And on that note, Antje, I would like to thank you very much for taking your time to
Thank you.
be a guest today. And for those of you also, probably nobody else other than me might know this, Antje also delivered an entire day's worth of training already today. And she had a very short time period before she got on this webinar. So again, lots of energy and excitement. Really appreciate your enthusiasm for all of this.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been a
And
great conversation.
yes, yeah, really enjoyed it. So thank you. Thank everybody in attendance. If you have any other follow-on questions or you'd like anything specifically for Antje to be able to answer, just let us know and we'll get a blog together on it. So thanks again, and we'll hopefully see everybody next week.
Okay.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Antje.
Bye.